Hi everybody, this is a video to help you get started on essay number 3. Like I have in the past, I created a PowerPoint presentation, so let's take a look at it here. So, if you haven't already, make sure you take a look at the assignment sheet I posted, but this essay is going to be a source critique. You are going to choose some topic related to food and find 2 articles and talk about them in an essay. So, let's talk about similarities between this essay and the previous one that you did. Each of these essays is meant to kind of build on the last one so that you work your way up to being able to do a good research paper. So, in this essay, you're going to be doing things that you did in the essay about the Turkle article. You're going to be summarizing, analyzing, quoting, and citing, and responding to these articles. So how is this essay different then from essay number 2? One difference is that you're going to be doing your own research and finding these 2 articles yourself. Another difference is that instead of talking or making an argument about this food topic in general, you're going to be discussing more about how you think these articles are written and how convincing each one of them is in supporting its claim about this topic. So last time I gave you just one article. This time you're going to be doing more comparing and contrasting of these 2 articles that you find. And really, the purpose of this assignment is to offer a recommendation as to which article you think would be better to use for a research assignment. You're not going to be doing a research paper on this topic, but if you were, which one would be better for that? And then finally, you're going to be doing a works cited page since you're using multiple sources and I'm not familiar with either of these articles that you're finding. So I'm posting on Blackboard a document that shows you how to set up a works cited page and how to do entries for articles in particular. So make sure you check that out, especially as you get closer to completing a draft, okay? So, first step is to find articles. I know you're probably not going to want to hear this, but Google is not the best place to find academic research sources. Google's fine for getting a good general overview of a topic, but for a research paper, you want to be finding better articles than that. So the goal is to find what are called scholarly articles rather than popular articles. So I've kind of outlined the differences here between those 2 types. A popular article is going to be geared toward the general public. So anybody picking up one of these articles can probably understand, what this topic is about. They're usually not very well researched, though. A lot of times they don't have a works cited or reference page. They may not even use any quotations. So that's not a good sign when you're trying to do research for your own paper. You can even tell by the way that they look that these popular articles look different than a scholarly article. Popular articles usually have big print. They're usually really colorful. They often have a bunch of pictures. And I think a dead giveaway that something is a popular article is if it contains a numbered list. So even in the title, it might say something like 10 reasons why factory farming is worse than you thought. Those are kind of clickbait types of articles, and they're not usually very specific. They're just like a general overview of some very complex topic. So they're not good to use for your research. Examples of more popular publications would be these things that you've probably heard of, and they seem legit, but they're not really great for a research assignment. So things like Newsweek, even the New York Times, which the Turkle article was from, and something like the Huffington Post, these are more popular sources that are geared toward a general audience. So again, things that I would probably avoid when you're finding articles. A scholarly article is going to be geared more toward researchers or experts in the field. So they're going to contain lots of citations. They're going to contain a good works cited or reference page. They may have 20 or 30 different sources on there. And frankly, as far as how they look, a good scholarly article is going to look pretty boring. It's going to have small print, probably no pictures, or if there is a picture, it might be a graph or something like that. They're going to contain lots of quotations from different sources. And examples of publications that are more scholarly would be things like the American Sociological Review, the Journal of Popular Culture, or Sustainable Agriculture. So I'm not saying go out and use these particular publications, but these are just the types of things that are more scholarly. So if a title has review or journal in it, those are good signs. Or if the publication's on a really specific subject like sustainable agriculture, that's not geared toward the general public, but they're good to use for research. So the best place to find these types of articles is to go to a library database, whether that's Tri-C's databases, which I'm going to show you in a minute, or a public library's databases. So if you have a library card for either Cuyahoga County Public Library or Cleveland Public Library, you have access to their databases for free. And this is important because if you've ever done a Google search and you find what sounds like a good article that's asking you to pay to access the article, I would never pay to do research. Probably that article that you found is available on a library database for free. Libraries pay for subscriptions to a bunch of different magazines and journals so that their card holders can have access to those articles for free. So just know that that's an option. So now I want to show you Tri-C's databases here. You're going to start by going to the Tri-C homepage, and then in the upper right-hand corner, you'll just type library and then click on that search button. So once you do that, the top link that you see that says Finding Articles, you're going to click on that, and that's going to take you to the library databases. I keep using that word database, but all that means is a collection of articles. And databases can be on a really specific subject, or they can be on all sorts of different topics. So there are basically a few different ways that you can search for articles. One way is to click on Subject Guides here on the left, and there you could click on a particular subject area, and it will link you to databases that contain those types of articles. So if I wanted to click on business, it would lead me to databases that contain business articles, for example. So that's one way to search. Another way to search is if you scroll down here, there's a link that says A to Z databases. If you click on that, you can scroll through and see all the databases that Tri-C has access to. If you want to limit those, you could just click, or just type a word that you want to search in this word locator, and that might give you a more specific list of databases that you can look at. So that's another way to search. And then finally, you can go to these this list at the top. This is a list probably of the most popular databases, and they have articles on all sorts of different types of subjects. The only one I would avoid would be the New York Times one, just because, like we said, the New York Times contains more popular articles rather than scholarly. I think that a good one to start with if you're just beginning research is this one on the top called Academic Search Complete. If you click on that, if you're off campus, you're probably going to have to enter your S number and your password. A screen will come up and ask you to do that. But once you enter that information, it will take you to the database here. And you'll see there are a bunch of search boxes. It's just like Google. You can type in whatever you're searching for, click search, and then a list of articles will come up. Just one tip here. You want what's called advanced search, which is what this is right now. If for some reason it comes up as basic search, it's just going to have one search box there, and that doesn't really let you narrow down your subject very much. So if it comes up like this, just click on advanced search, and then you can type in multiple search terms to get you to a more specific set of articles. But again, you're just going to click on search and look through those. So we'll talk more specifically about using databases and finding good articles once we get to the research paper assignment. But for this assignment, I really just want you to kind of try accessing the databases, playing around with them, and familiarize yourself with them, and see if you can find a couple of good articles for this assignment, okay? So let's go back to my PowerPoint here. So once you've found a couple of good articles, that's when you want to start reading through them and marking them up and figuring out what you want to talk about in this essay. So things to kind of question as you're reading, one, identify the author's overall point or claim. Think about what evidence does the author use to support this claim, and is that good evidence? Is the author's reasoning logical? Is it flawed in some way? Is it biased? These are all things to talk about in your essay. Do they give enough evidence, or is that argument based on very limited research, like just a couple of articles that they found? That's probably a bad sign, if so. Are the author's points focused and relevant to the thesis, or does this person go off on tangents that don't really support the thesis? If so, that's a weakness of that article. If this person does a survey or does an interview, are those things representative of the general population? So just as an example, if I'm trying to make the claim that all men are tall, and I say as evidence, well, LeBron's tall, Kevin Durant's tall, Kawhi Leonard's tall, so that must mean that all men are tall. That's not a good sample size because those are only referring to NBA players, not the general population. So that claim that all men are tall would kind of fall apart there, right? So that's something to think about. And then beyond the article itself, you might want to think about, does this author seem credible? And an easy way to test that is to just type the author's name in Google and see what comes up. If you find that this person has a degree, that this person has published articles or books before, those are good signs. If you type this person's name and nothing comes up, that might be an article that you would say is not so trustworthy. You also maybe want to think about how old the article is. You probably noticed that with that Turkle article, it was pretty old. I would try to find an article that was written in the last couple of years, because you're probably going to have more accurate information if you do that, okay? So once you've kind of thought about the articles, then you can start writing. Obviously, you're going to have a nice intro, and in that intro, you're going to briefly discuss this topic, this food topic in general, for a couple sentences maybe. Then introduce the first article, give the author and title, and briefly summarize it. Then you're going to introduce the second article, give the author and title, give maybe a couple sentences summarizing it, and then you're going to give maybe a couple of sentences where you discuss, very generally, how you think the two articles compare with each other. Your thesis, the last sentence of your intro, should try to answer this question: which of these two articles is stronger and more appropriate for a research assignment, and why? So again, that's really the goal of this assignment, to talk about that question. So as far as the body paragraphs, these are kind of just sections that will be contained in that body portion. And again, we're talking multiple paragraphs here. So I'd probably do maybe one paragraph where you just summarize article number 1, and then maybe 1 or 2 paragraphs where you analyze and critique article number 1. And that can include specific quotations, but, what's your sense of this article? Then you're going to summarize probably in 1 paragraph article number 2, and then maybe a paragraph or 2 analyzing and critiquing article number 2. Then you're going to do a paragraph or 2 where you can compare and contrast articles number 1 and 2 and talk about which one is stronger, where do they agree, where do they disagree, which one's more persuasive, all that sort of thing. So then when you get to the conclusion, that's where you're ultimately going to offer a recommendation as to which article you think is better for a research assignment. Talk about, would you still recommend that second source as a possibility for a research assignment? Or is that one not so trustworthy, right? So maybe both articles are good, maybe just one is better than the other. And then finally, why is this article helpful in gaining a better understanding of this topic? Those are all things to talk about in that conclusion. So good luck, get started, and let me know.